Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Rockville City Council meeting 10-A. Today is Saturday, March 2nd, and we are here for candidate interviews for the Rockville City Council vacancy. So welcome, everybody. We have 3 questions for your panel, and we'll start with...
Opening statements?
Oh, you are right. Thank you.
Timing, is there a timing?
Yes, 2 minutes.
Okay. We'll start with opening statements, and which end do we want to go first? Mr. Wright, you want to start first?
Sure. I'm Robert J. Wright, but please refer to me as Bob Wright. I'm a 39-year resident of Rockville. I believe you know me and are familiar with my background, and I assume you've read the narrative, so I'll try not to repeat all of that information. I want to emphasize 3 points. First, Rockville experience counts. Second, familiarity with current issues in Rockville counts. And third, time to devote to the position counts. Rockville experience counts in government and in communities ought to be valued. I served as a council member for 6 years, presently serve on the Financial Advisory Board as its chairman, served as a member of the board of directors on the Rockville Sister City Corporation, have been president and treasurer of Peerless Rockville, and have been a community organizer. The first event was many years ago with townhouses on the Veers property, and currently it's townhouses in the Rockshire Center. These experiences allow me to be immediately a productive member of mayor and council. I believe I am the candidate with the most experience with Rockville government. Familiarity with current issues counts. Selected issues that come to mind are the Red Gate Golf Course, APFS, APFO, Champion Projects, King Farm Farmstead, water and sewer rates, etc. I am familiar with most issues currently coming before the mayor and council. Time to devote to the position counts. Council member positions are part-time, but you and I know the time commitment just to read the brief book is significant. To have a full career and be a council member will be a challenge. I know I did it once. Some of you have done it. I am retired and currently have the time available to be a responsible and successful interim council member. I look forward to the questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Pearson.
Good morning, Mayor, council members, and citizens of Rockville. As I contemplated preparing my opening statement, I decided I wanted to present an insight to my own personal and professional values that I would bring to decision-making for the city of Rockville. As an avid reader, one of my favorite books is titled The Power of Nice by Robert Shapiro. The theme of the book is that win-win is the best type of negotiating strategy to produce short-term and long-term beneficial results. In a win-win model, all parties are invested in long-term continued negotiating success. Conversely, the win-lose model is an outdated model in which one party has win at all costs. I've been an advocate in my personal life for professional career advocating the win-win model negotiation. I'm a confident, optimistic, and problem solver. I wish city officials to consider an example. As a freshman in college, my college roommate had a Confederate flag displayed on his side of the wall in our shared dorm room. Attempts on my part to persuade him to remove the flag failed. After a few days of tension, I noticed that he was a fan of the original Star Trek TV series. I saw this as an opportunity to see what we had in common rather than our differences. After bonding over the shared interest in the show, we continued to build a good working relationship. Though the flag remained on the wall, I consider this a win-win because we moved from such a divisive issue to become friendlier and more cooperative roommates. Negotiation and problem solving can be easy or difficult. Regardless of negotiations or problem solving, issues that will be presented to the mayor and council, if appointed, I will be prepare, propose, problem solve, and if necessary, propose my own ideas to assist in reaching the best course of action for Rockville.
Thank you very much. Mr. Johnson.
Yes, good morning. My name is Steve Johnson. I'm really very pleased to come before you and offer my candidacy for the council vacancy. I'm a huge fan of Rockville. I've lived here for 25 years and raised a family, and I think that I'm uniquely qualified to fill former council member Polakovich Carr's seat. I live in the same East Rockville neighborhood that she does, and I offer a great measure of her youthfulness. I think most importantly, though, I have a record of leadership on issues that are important to the city and the broader community. For 10 years, I served on the Rockville Board of Appeals and the Planning Commission, and I was also an appointed chair of the Stone Street Redevelopment Task Force. I know how to evaluate the issues. I know how the city functions. Most importantly, I know how to work with city staff to help fashion solutions, how to build a consensus with my colleagues, and then how to make the decisions that are best interests of the city. I've also been a leader at the state level in state government. For 8 years, I was chief counsel to the Maryland Department of Environment, where I led an office of 28 attorneys and worked regularly with local governments around the state to protect and enhance the environment. I think with our relationship with the county, it's critical that we have obviously connections with county leaders, and I have those. I was recently graduated from the Leadership Montgomery program, where I worked with over 60 leaders in business, nonprofit, and government, where we work together to explore some of the challenges that affect the county and the broader community, and then how to build the relationships with people in order to solve those problems. We live in an incredibly unique city here in Rockville with the feel and community of a small town, but with the services, amenities, and the challenges of a growing city. And I'm confident that I have the skills and the imagination and the humility and the resolve to work well with each of you to meet those challenges and to help guide Rockville to the bright future that it's going to have. And I look forward to answering your questions.
Thank you very much. Mr. Daroff.
Good morning. Thank you. My name is John Daroff, and I want to thank the mayor and council members for providing this opportunity to fill the term for the vacant council seat. But first, I want to wish my son Ted, who is watching at home, a happy birthday, since we are celebrating his birthday later today. So I live in Newmark Commons with my wife and 2 children, aged 2 and 6. And currently I'm president of the Newmark Commons Homeowners Association. Professionally, I'm an attorney with a primary practice in real estate law. I also hold a real estate license and a title insurance producer license. We moved here in 2011, so we've been here about 7 or 8 years. And we're here for the long haul, and I want to make sure that Rockville is doing everything that it can to provide for its residents and businesses. I prefer to take a pragmatic approach to problem solving by taking care to ensure that I understand the situation fully and craft a solution that meets the needs of the stakeholders involved. But I also understand that governing sometimes requires hard choices. And this is where community engagement and input is so important. And I look forward to working with and on behalf of our neighbors to protect our neighborhoods and ensure a vibrant community. I decided to apply for this seat because I enjoy living in Rockville, but I am concerned about its future. The town center is failing, and we need to understand why, especially when there is development going on all around us. The town center is not the destination that it should be, and we need to make changes to make it vibrant again. I'm also concerned about the adequate public facilities ordinance. Although it is admirable to try to ensure that our public facilities can accommodate development, it is a mistake to halt development on the issue of school capacity, since it's something not controlled by the city. But the question in my mind is, how can the mayor and council engage MCPS to ensure that the needs of our residents are being met? And it's not just schools. We need to be working with our state and county counterparts to ensure that the city of Rockville is advocating for its residents. We're going to be affected by the governor's I-270 expansion, and we need to have a strong presence in those discussions to make sure that our neighborhoods and homes are not lost to expansion. I believe that my experiences, both as an attorney and president of my homeowners association, gives me the necessary tools to effectively represent Rockville's residents. Thank you again for this opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chu.
Yes. Good morning, Madam Mayor and Council. Thank you for considering me for this vacancy. I want to serve the great people of our city, and I believe I'm the right person for this position at this time. With new development projects on the way, our city is growing more diverse and attracting millennial families, and I believe that these times call for a diverse young parent with highly relevant experience in government to work with you in shaping a balanced city that works for everyone. I support economic development that is best for Rockville's future while protecting the quality of life in our neighborhoods and not overcrowding our schools. I lived in an affordable mixed-use development in DC when I started out in my career. I walked and took public transit everywhere, and I saw how the development benefited the neighborhood. I live with my wife and my 2 young sons now in a King Farm townhome, and I can also understand parents who are concerned about school overcrowding. My insights from living in different neighborhoods would greatly benefit discussions on affordable housing, the APFO, APFS, and school overcrowding. I think that more can be done to engage our increasingly diverse and younger population in participating in boards and commissions. As a son of Asian immigrants, I spent the last 25 years serving my local community with people of all different backgrounds, as a Boy Scout, church volunteer, and most recently as a cultural arts commissioner, where I co-led the subcommittee to successfully update its vision and priorities. As a council member, I will use my experience to inspire and engage our young and diverse population and fill our vacancies with the best and brightest people. I also bring to the council my extensive experience in government, management, and communications. I graduated from the #1 public policy school in the country. I spent the last 13 years of my career leading federal government programs that have improved the health, safety, and environment for millions of Americans while saving taxpayers' money. So as a council member, I will listen, collaborate in solutions, and work with you to make Rockville a great place to live, work, and play for everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We're going to go now to questions, and we didn't talk about this, council members, but since I got to do the opening, why don't each one of you take one of the questions and sort of shepherd that? Councilmember Onley, would you like to start with? Might turn it on.
Yeah, help if I turned it on too. How would you get more people to participate in Rockville city government? And since we went this way, you want to go the other way? Okay. Mr. Chu, you want to answer that question?
Sure. So this is exactly in the area that I've had the most expertise in. I've been a communications professional and I'm currently a senior manager in the federal government in communications and public affairs. So I've done this my whole life, really. So the ideas that I have is that I think that we need to, I'm for reaching out to diverse, young people all over the city. And I think in order to do that, I think you need to partner with organizations that already reach out to those folks. Find out where they're getting their information. Find out what they're reading, who are influencing them. Partner with organizations to reach those folks. And I did that when I was in the Census Bureau. I worked in the largest government marketing campaign, the 2010 decennial census. And we had to reach people that were underserved, immigrants who didn't speak English, and we had to partner with, and I partnered with Catholic Charities, ARP, Council de la Raza to reach folks who are hard to reach. So I think that folks who already know about us will participate, but I want to tap into the potential of the best and brightest people who have not heard about the opportunities that the city offers and reach them. That's one idea I have. I also think that we have to really get people to participate early on in their life. So I've been a participant in many internships and externships and shadowing programs throughout my entire career. I think to reach students and to reach kids who have early on, while they're in high school and college, to shadow someone in the staff, to shadow someone for a day. I know that we already do the Mayor for a Day program, which is great. I think we could expand that. And I think that would really engage people early on. And lastly, if you want to have young people involved, you really need to, I think we need to update our technology. We need to be more digital. We need to, because people are getting their information through the phone increasingly, and they're checking their mail less, they're not getting their information even through a website. So I think it's increasingly important for us to update our technology within the staff and to reach people where they are. And I think lastly, if you also want to get young people involved, you need to have someone young on the council. You need to have someone who inspires people. Someone has to say, oh, that person's doing it, I can do it too. And I think that's the way to really get people. I think we have a really great cultural diversity here. 1/3 of I think the city comes from people of different countries. We have 1/4 Asian American. And there's so much potential that we could tap into, and it's only growing. And I would love to be part of that because I've done that my whole life.
Thank you. Mr. Daroff?
So, this is one of the perennial questions that any organization has. Taking from the experience from my homeowners association, it's like pulling teeth to get people to volunteer on a committee. No one wants to participate. Everybody has a busy life, and there's a million reasons to say no. But the fact of the matter is, we need people with with expertise in the community who are willing to serve. And one of the ways that we do it on a smaller scale, obviously with the city it's a little different, but one of the ways that we do it is when people come out and they express an opinion on something, whether it's someone who comes to community forum or sends us an email about, gee, we need whatever, we try to capture that person on a one-to-one and say, gee, we can't work on that right now, but can you help us with this? Or since you're so passionate about this issue, can you work with us on that? And so on a smaller scale, that's certainly one thing that Rockville might be able to capture. But on a larger scale, certainly there are organizations out there, whether it be a faith organization or a volunteer organization, that have people. And so partnering with established organizations is certainly a wonderful way to engage folks. And I will say this as the parent of young children, anytime that some form of childcare can be arranged to assist in participation, that often for folks in young families, because oftentimes people who are serving in leadership positions often are retired or their children are out of the house or something. And so it's always so, like I said, it's easy to say no. Sorry, my kid has a birthday party today, or oh gee, it's at 7 o'clock at night. The kids are in bed. I can't leave. So I would certainly say that if you're looking for a younger demographic, especially folks that have made Rockville their home base for a growing family, that if there were I don't know, like when they have PTA meetings over at the school, they have a vendor that provides free childcare during the PTA meeting. So perhaps that would be one way to boost some participation from folks that may otherwise not be able to. And I also agree, with technology, we need to ensure that our technology is up to snuff and is reaching folks through the vast media that is around.
Thank you. Mr. Johnson?
Well, it's an important question. It's difficult to solve it. I know the city's been asking it for a long, long time, and I personally experienced this when I was on the Planning Commission. I was always amazed by those people who were very engaged, showed up often. Madam Mayor, you were a frequent participant in Planning Commission events, and I wondered why it was that other people didn't have your level of engagement and passion. And look where it led to you to being the mayor. And time and time again, we saw the same people at neighborhood planning meetings, and so the people who are engaged, they're engaged. We have to figure out how to get people who are not that interested engaged, and that's been very difficult. One of the ways that I've done it, just personally, is just by demonstrating passion for serving the city. Every opportunity I got when I was on the Planning Commission, I would tell people that it's a lot of fun. It's extremely rewarding. You have an opportunity to fashion and shape the city in the way that you think is important. And so I encourage people all the time to serve. I think as John said down there, we also need to capture the imagination of our young people as early as possible. The Mayor for a Day is a great program, but I think we need to encourage the county to include in the curriculum a course on civics. I don't think they learn in school the fascinating issues that every city and town has to deal with, things like housing and transportation and seniors. You just don't learn about it until you live in a city, and we need to try to as I said, capture their imagination early on. I think it'd also be useful at hometown holidays and all the other city-sponsored events that there's a booth with somebody there to with the bullhorn and say, come work with the city. These are great opportunities. We've got these commissions, these panels, these boards. Doesn't matter what you're interested, we got a spot for you. Come work. And maybe some free popcorn or something to get people there.
All right, thank you. Mr. Pearson?
Well, the past couple of election cycles, I've worked as an election judge for the county, and this past election cycle, I was a trainer for training election judges. And one of the things I was struck by as an election judge and as a trainer is the passion that people have to vote. Especially as a trainer, we had people from high school to senior citizens wanting to learn the operations of the election cycle. And one of the things I think that would be nice is rather than focus on, September and getting ready for November, this should be a year-long process. And one of the things that I think would be very helpful is I'm a big person that believes in the Rockville Town Center. I spend a lot of time there. My family does, in particular my son, who's the artist of the family. He likes Viz Arts. And one of the things I would recommend is having maybe a quarterly event in Rockville Town Center in which maybe you can talk to the county to have them bring the machines, have a seminar in the off times, because everybody will be ready when November comes that have been exposed to it. I think the periodic cycle of reminding people the importance of voting to vote is just not in November, it's year round. And I wish that you could see the people that I've trained and the people that I've worked with on election day, people come in, they have a certain positive energy, people are happy, they want to exercise their right to vote. But I would recommend that throughout, again, I'm a big advocate of Rockville Town Center, but it doesn't necessarily have to be at Rockville Town Center. I think the most important thing is to be quarterly or at different times off the cycle of people are thinking about November.
Thank you. Mr. Wright?
Yes, this is not a new problem. It's been around, I think, for all the decades. I also agree with what people have said in terms of we have to keep searching for ways. We may not have found it yet, but that doesn't mean we give up. So personally, what do? I believe that the first thing you have to do is you really have to recruit from the entire age spectrum and diversity. And then once you're there, you have to nurture that. So ways that people can get involved now that you would encourage them to take a ride along with the police, go to what we used to call Rockville University, to apply for boards and commissions and task force. Those are all opportunities, but I think that it's the responsibility of those board members and the chair to recruit. I know as the chair of the Financial Advisory Board, I had to recruit, and I found, I think, two great new board members. I think we also, as has been mentioned, childcare is an issue. We had a board member at our last meeting who brought along her 11-year-old daughter. And I think the responsibility certainly of the chair is to recognize that the parent made an effort to come to the board meeting and ask the child and recognize that the child is present. So I think those are all things that we can do. So again, I'll just repeat, I think that the real challenge comes down to recruiting. You really have to recruit. I know we would like them to be spontaneous and join, and some will. Don't get me wrong, some will do that. But on the other hand, I really think you have to recruit them to be active in the various opportunities in Rockville.
Thank you.
Councilmember Shayla, do you want to do question number 2?
Yes. I will do question number 2, and I'm going to start with Mr. Johnson. Change it up a little bit, Mr. Johnson, Mr. Daroff, Mr. Pearson, Mr. Chu, Mr. Wright. Okay, so question, Mr. Johnson. How would you provide housing, including affordable housing, for Rockville residents?
Well, that's one of the most important questions that we face as a city. I was reading the trend reports for the city that were to guide the 2040 comprehensive plan, and I was surprised to see that there's an estimate of needing 12,000 residential units by 2040. That is a lot of housing in order to meet the expected growing population. You have to do it with policies that encourage the development of housing in all parts of the city. I think obviously most of that housing is going to have to be provided in more of the urban core. So we're going to have to, I think, allow for higher density development around transportation nodes and around centers where we have jobs. And you need to encourage it through require it through the requirement to include moderately priced dwelling units in your, I think it's 15% now, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know if other jurisdictions have moved that up to 20%, but I could see a scenario where you might make it 20% if it's a project that, and you allow more density. So the higher the higher heights that you allow, the more moderately priced dwelling units that you have to provide. I think we have to have more neighborhood retail in the neighborhoods that might encourage more developers to build housing in those areas. But it's going to take a whole lot of different policies to encourage developers to build them. I'd build them myself if I could, but 12,000 is really too many.
Thank you, Mr. Daroff.
Thank you. This is a tough question. We live in a very expensive area. Just land values here are just very high. And I think that, there's a wide array of policies that we would have to consider, which could include, moderately priced dwelling units, and perhaps, looking at upping the percentages based on density, but also, a voucher program, maybe like, a city add-on to, Section 8 type of thing, to assist with that, maybe having, different income requirements. The other thing that we could do is, there may be, a system of tax rebates or something for developers to ensure that they're giving, we'll cut you a little bit of a break as long as, this is a, multifamily dwelling unit or moderately priced dwelling or something like that. There's really no one solution to it. And what will be most important is to work with all of the stakeholders involved to find on a per project. It's because I look at it some of it as a per project basis, that as developers are coming into as projects are coming on to develop and developers are coming in, and we take a look at the areas of the city that are being served and say, well, in this area of the city we think X, and in this area of the city we think Y, and really working with the developers and folks in need of, the constituencies in need of, moderately priced housing, to find a solution that works for everyone.
Thank you. Mr. Pearson?
When I was graduated from undergrad, in between law school, I worked with the Virginia Employment Commission as a summer intern, helping build jobs for some people that wanting summer jobs. And one of the things that was impressed upon was they were giving tax credit to the employers that hired these summer interns. And so I've kind of always thought that philosophy was very creative and helpful. In addition, we have to build more housing. But I think one of the other aspects that we need to do is we need to encourage, for instance, like Montgomery College, maybe go to the recess center and talk to the people to see that, because my children are in that age where they're in their 20s and they still live at home, and they're always talking about, Dad, it's difficult to find an apartment. I'd have to share with a lot of people. So that is a critical area that we need to explore. But I think it's a two-pronged approach. We need to develop more housing and more reach out to the people that need the housing. And I think I'm a big advocate of going to the people and asking what they need. That was one of the reasons why I was saying Montgomery County College. We can go to their resource center or have a seminar and talk to the students and say, what do you need? What jobs, or where is a good location? One of my children are always asking about, where do I need to go? What do I need to do? And we could tell them what it is, but it's, out of the price range. So I think the important thing is to not only get more housing, but also to talk to the students and the young people that are needing the housing. What are their needs? What do they want to do? How are we going to house them?
Thank you, Mr. Pearson. Mr. Chu?
Thank you. I think this is an issue that is near and dear to my heart because I lived in different neighborhoods from rentals to single family homes. I own a townhome now, and I was in a mixed use development before in DC. And I think that Rockville has to move to a place. My vision for Rockville is that it's a place where everyone has a place. Everyone can afford to live here if they work here. I think that a young person who grows up here, who works, should be able to live here. A teacher should not have to live in another town, or a housekeeper should not have to live in another town if they work here. And yes, a young family should be able to afford a house, and a senior should have a home where they could age in place. So I think that if I was councilman, I would support three things. I would support mixed-use development because I've seen it work. I was in a rental in DC. There was like $1,000, which is really not cheap anyway, but it's considered cheap there in DC. And there were a lot of people, seniors and there's folks who lived in that apartment. So I think that's one solution, and I think we need to have our policies that dedicate a certain portion to ensure that there are rentals and units that are affordable. I agree with John's idea about tax rebates for developers if they meet a certain requirement for keeping housing low. And I want to take Sam's idea even one step further for young people. Let's reach out for ideas from our brightest students in high school and college. Let's give them a business case competition and ask them, here are the parameters. Here's the situation and the challenges. As you grow up, if you want to live, as you grow up, this is the situation. Give us your best case of how you would want to see the city and how you would have affordable housing and housing for everyone. So I would love to see the city remain a city of distinct neighborhoods where you can live in a house, or you can live in a rental, or in different units if you want to. That's where I would take this as a council member.
Thank you, Mr. Chu. Mr. Wright?
Yes. Currently, Rockville has a Rockville Housing Authority, deals with a very small amount, but I think we need to be supportive of the Rockville Housing Authority and the MPDUs. Obviously, it's expensive in this area, and whether it's tax rebates or other areas, there's a lot of money involved. So I certainly support the MPDU ordinance. It's currently at 15%, and what I would suggest is a discussion on the mayor and council as whether you should raise that. And secondly, I would say the percentage. The second thing I would say is that we can make exceptions to development when certain conditions arise. So, for example, a development near a Rockville metro station, all right? We might say, you're coming in for an exception, but in addition to that, we want more MPDUs. Now, whether that's an increase in height or whatever the situation is. So I think that's really the mechanism that has to work. And making exceptions during a transit center, I think, is a great idea because the people going into the units probably will depend more on public transportation, and they're there. It makes sense from a climate change point of view, in the sense that they would again be getting on public transit. So I think we have an existing program. I would think that a good discussion of whether we should raise that or not, and certainly be open to exceptions where it makes sense, especially near transit centers.
Thank you, Mr. Wright.
Councilmember Feinberg?
Yep, as soon as I get my glasses on. Okay, we'll start with Mr. Pearson this time, and then we'll swing around to Mr. Wright, Mr. Chu, Mr. Daroff, and Mr. Johnson. Number 3, how would you go about studying and making decisions about Rockville's budget?
Well, one of the things that I would like to do is probably before I present my ideas to council, if I'm doing a personal review of the budget, I would like to have a wish list. Things that would be, if we had as much money as possible or within reason, I would like to start off with that. And then I would think and be rational and say, what is the practicality of my wish list? And one of the things that I would do is I would compare the budgets, a Rockville budget, to all the existing counties, all the cities in the county, and plus maybe another jurisdiction that's outside that may be comparable with Rockville as far as demographics. As far as decision making, one of the things I hope I come across with regard to the questions and my narratives is that I'm interested in people. I enjoy people. I have a good personality. I'm creative, and one of the things that I want to do in the budget is invest in the people, make sure that the people are taken care of. You know, with regard to social services, fire, that's the priority that needs to be taken care of first. Secondly, I'm interested in business. I've started a small business a couple of years ago. It was a vending service. And after my main job at working at the Pentagon, I would come home and deliver products to different clients in the area. And so that's another thing that I would like to look at the budget to make sure that we are reaching out to small businesses and making sure that they are making sure that they're a priority within our city. And one of the things that probably needs to be, how do you balance the business versus the city? And I think we probably need more of a partnership, because we want to create jobs, and create jobs making them a more bigger tax base. And once we get a bigger tax base, again, back to the win-win scenario, everybody wins. So that's my parameters of how I would do my personal evaluation of the budget. But obviously I would consult with the mayor and members of the council to see whether or not they agree or disagree with me. But at least I want you to get the thought process of how I would make those decisions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wright.
Yes, I don't think the process that's currently in place actually needs to be challenged, all right? First, the staff prepares it, and they do an excellent job of preparing a 100-plus page document. They receive awards every year for its preparation. The Financial Advisory Board reviews the content, and so there's another place where some input can be made. And of course, you have an outside auditor who audits in terms of whether the budget was actually implemented in an appropriate way. So that still leaves mayor and council as the policy group setting the direction. So if you have a Red Gate golf course, do you want to continue putting money into that as a policy? Do you want to explore another idea? It's the same with all the enterprise funds. Mayor and council will decide how much they're willing to do that. For example, one of the changes that is coming up is for various programs in the schools, the Financial Advisory Board has recognized, these are Rockville programs in schools, daycare, whatnot, that there currently has not been an overhead expense into the charge. And then the question is from the financial, should we recommend that the overhead expense should be included in the cost of doing that? And we have. On the other hand, the not the Planning Commission, the Rockville Parks and Recs may say, well, no, we really have programs that are really appreciated by the people, and we aren't going to be able to cover them, and if that's the policy, we shouldn't do that. But the final decision as to whether you want to, I don't want to use the word subsidize, but have a benefit to the citizens of Rockville will come from mayor and council. Mayor and council look at the budget. They get a number of reports from staff. You each have your own preferences as how you'd like to have it, or what you'd like to see in the budget. So I'll start off, I started off saying that I don't think the process is broken. I don't know how we could improve it. I'm sure we will keep trying to look at ways to do that. But I think the current way brings in the will of the people. There's several public hearings about it, so you'll hear from residents who want to see a particular program, and I believe that works.
Thank you very much. Mr. Chu?
Yes, thank you. As a federal manager, I've prepared budgets for major organizations for multi-million-dollar programs, and I think that the budget is a reflection of is a numerical reflection of the priorities of the organization. So I think that it has to be, we have to have a clear vision and clear priority set first in order to do the budget. I don't think the process has to change either. If I were a councilman, I would certainly not work in a vacuum. I would work and consult with you as well to see what has worked, look at past budgets, look at documentation, compare our budget, and also study the budgets of other neighboring counties and other neighboring cities. I would also throw it out there to the commissions and boards to see whether there's any projects that they need. I remember when I was in the Cultural Arts Commission, Councilman Pajela asked the commission whether there's any cultural arts projects that we needed. So I would consider all that. And then I would put on my project management hat. I've been a trained project manager. I would think about whether the money actually will do the job. Can we implement with that kind of money? Is there any ways we could be more efficient and reduce some unnecessary programs or things that are just not producing any results? That's what I would look at overall. I think that it can be improved, certainly. I don't think the whole process has to be overhauled, but there's certainly ways we can improve the budget process.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Daroff?
Hi. So, budgeting is always a big deal. I've been part of Newmark's budget process for the last 4 years. And the way that I really go about studying the budget is looking at your core programs to ensure that those are funded. And from a policy point of view, like, we think it's important to have police. We think it's important to have, the swim center and all of those things. And so I sort of go down as a priority list and say, okay, these are the core services that we want to be offering. And then I'm also interested in what the community needs to say and the commissions, and there's a whole variety of folks. And so what's great about Rockville's budget process is it does take into account the different asks from different people. But in terms of the priorities for the council, for example, we're talking about affordable housing. Well, let's take a look at the budget and say, let's see if we can put some money where our priorities are in terms of, getting affordable housing. Can we afford, a rebate program? Can we afford, to provide vouchers to people who need them or something like that? And so, from that standpoint, really, I truly believe in making sure that our core services are funded and fully funded so that we can be effective. And, because Rockville has a lot of other great programs, like there's the Rainscape grants and all of those things. And so the question then becomes, because there are so many programs like that, do those programs take away from other more critical needs? And so I think as a council, and for me, I literally would sit down with a briefing book and make my notes and come to council and say, well, I think, and based on public opinion and working with other members, come to a good budget.
Thank you. And Mr. Johnson?
Well, I've been through this process before, not in the city, but when I led and managed the law office at the Maryland Department of the Environment, I had to work within a budget and meet priorities and goals. I think for the city, it must be done the same way. You got to figure out how much money you have available, what the city's needs are, what the priorities are, and then you have to make choices and decisions. And I would take a sort of a lawyer's approach to this, as I do with most things, and I would study every piece of information that is made available to me by the city staff. I would reach out for more information. I'd ask questions. I'd evaluate not every line of what's given to me, but anything that doesn't make absolute sense to me. I'd talk to my fellow council members who've been through the process before, so that I can understand what's being presented to me. I'd study the city trend reports again and the master plans in order to understand what are the competing priorities of the city. And then through collaborating with the members of the council, we'll make decisions about what specific priorities are more important in each budget cycle, and then make decisions, and obviously take the input from city residents, because although we do have comprehensive plans and visions, things change all the time, and you may hear that there's a priority that nobody had thought about before that has arisen, and you have to throw that into the priorities and then make decisions about what's most important for the residents and for the city.
Thank you very much.
All right. It may look like we're scheduled here. We're trying to stay on schedule, but I did fail to say something at the very beginning, and that was that all of your names were drawn randomly from a hat. We went around the room and did it, and I just wanted you all to know that, how the selection was done, and that the other thing I needed to tell you is that there are three different questions for each panel, but they tend to be on the same topics. So I just wanted you to know that as well. Are we now ready for closing statements? All right. I feel like we need to start in a different direction. Why don't we start with you, John?
Sure, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you again, Madam Mayor and Council, for the opportunity to interview. With the changes that we have today, I think it is critical for this vacancy to be filled by a diverse young parent who understands government and knows how to make diversity and inclusion work for everyone. As a council member, I'll use my experience to engage our diverse and young populations into a new wave of civic participation in our boards and commissions. I want to lead efforts to reach out to young people, young parents, Asian Americans, people of color, and immigrant families in our city. As a council member, I'll support strategically placed mixed-use development that boosts our tax revenue, creates a space for cultural arts, and makes it easier for people to bike, walk, and take public transit with not overcrowding our schools. As a council member, I'll support sustainable long-term businesses that anchor town center and push for creative solutions that make it a destination for visitors and locals alike, as with other developments coming up in our city. And last but not least, I'll support providing care and resources for our seniors who offer so much to our city through our Villages program and other programs like it, ensure that Rockville's a place for seniors to have an active, dignified retirement. And I believe I can do all this, we can do this, while protecting our neighborhoods and meeting the needs of people who want a small town feel in a big city. So if you feel the same energy and passion that I have for this, if you want somebody who'll do the right thing strive to do the right thing for all our people, from King Farm to Twin Brook, East End to West End, select me to be part of your council, and I will work with you to ensure that Rockville is the best place to live for decades to come. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Mr. Daroff.
Thank you. Again, thank you, Madam Mayor and Council. I look forward to spending many years living in Rockville, which is why I'm interested in helping shape the city in which we live. On a smaller scale, I've been engaged in many of the same issues that the city faces as president of Newmark Commons, such as aging infrastructure and school overpopulation, two issues that our community really has been engaged in. And I'm certain that working together, we'll be able to build a stronger Rockville so that seniors can age in place and children can have wonderful recreation, and adults too. And this is really the city that my wife and I, we've really come to love, and we look forward to the promise and future that it has.
Thank you. Mr. Johnson.
Thank you also for this opportunity. I put in my statement my background and my vision and priorities, so I won't summarize those now. What I'd rather do in closing is to just make an observation about the city that really struck me. As I mentioned, I read through the 8 city trends reports. Fascinating reading, actually, and a lot of interesting things that I didn't know about the city. And the thing that really stood out to me, and I think it says a lot about the city, and that was from the employment report. I read that only 14% of city residents actually work in the city, and conversely, 94% of the jobs in the city are taken by people who live outside the city. That says a lot about the city. I haven't really noodled through what it all means, but on the bright side, it means that Rockville is a terrific place to live, even if you have to commute outside the city. And also that the city of Rockville offers an incredible variety of jobs so that people are willing to commute from where they do commute to take those jobs. But on the darker side, it means there's a lot of people out on the roads, so it contributes to congestion. And also, as we've talked about in the earlier question, there's obviously not enough housing available in the city for people who are working in the city but for some reason don't. And I really relish the opportunity to work with each of you to figure out what these numbers means, issues like this and others that are in the trends report, and figure out how that we can change those numbers in the best interests of the city of Rockville. And I look forward to the opportunity to joining you. Thank you.
Mr. Pearson.
In closing, I think it's critical with such a limited time to present the necessary information to Rockville citizens and government about the type of person I am and what positive contributions I will make if appointed to the council. First, I plan to vigorously research and prepare for each council meeting. My preparation would include recommendations from council staff and seeking out opinions of the mayor, the fellow council members, and citizens. Secondly, I will ask questions to better understand the issues, and ask pertinent questions myself to get a grasp on more difficult issues. Finally, I will not be reluctant to propose solutions or suggestions that may have not been considered. I hope to bring a fresh perspective working on difficult issues that challenge the city of Rockville. I am a creative thinker, open and fair-minded, and a firm advocate of the power of nice as a personal and professional philosophy. Finally, I would like to thank the mayor, the council, for providing me the opportunity to apply for the vacancy. Your decision will be tough, as all candidates are worthy of your consideration. And to the citizens of Rockville, I'm committed to making the best effort to secure the wonderful present and a better future for all Rockville citizens.
Thank you. Mr. Wright.
Yes, again, thank you for all the service that you, 4 of you, have committed to for the city of Rockville. It's been a great city. You hear again and again that it's a great place to live, and the 4 of you have continued that. There are a lot of candidates, 22 to be exact, and there are some really good candidates. It's a welcome challenge. I've read all 22 narratives. Many have significant accomplishments. Many currently hold or have held impressive and important positions in government and the private sector. So how do you select? I offer 5 criteria. First, most candidates were not clear about their plans in the upcoming November 2019 elections. Do they plan to run again? Will they run on a slate? Whose slate? Election season is fast approaching. Those who clearly acknowledge the 9-month term is all they seek ought to be preferred. It would be fair to those not selected who plan to run in November. Second, the unexpired term to fill a council member is only 9 months, a very short time to become knowledgeable regarding the position. Candidates experienced with Rockville city government and city issues ought to be preferred. Number 3, it's a challenge to have a career and be a council member. A person with no other full-time commitments has the time to become a knowledgeable and productive council member in the 9 months and ought to be preferred. Number 4, many candidates expressed aspirational priorities. 9 months is a much too short a time to affect them. Those candidates who were specific regarding what they hope to accomplish in 9 months ought to be preferred. Last, number 5, candidates who have or had experience as neighborhood activists, community organizers, as neighborhood leaders from civic, citizen, and homeowners associations, and those who have served on Rockville boards and commissions ought to be preferred. I meet all 5 criteria, and in closing, I'll know you'll make the right decision.
Thank you all very much. We appreciate your time this morning and your dedication to the city.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can we keep the placard?
And I'm sorry I've let you all get up, but Councilmember Feinberg just suggested that we tell you a little bit about the rest of the day. You are free to leave or stay. We will get through all of this round of interviews today, and then we will have a selection process whereby we narrow the field of 22 to 5. And the second round of questions, interviews will be on Tuesday night, the 5th, from 7 to about 9. Did I say everything there? And I apologize that I broke up before we said all that.
You have a date scheduled by when you intend to make a decision?
By Tuesday the 5th, I believe, is when we
No,
will.
I mean on the final
Yeah.
finals.
Yes.
Oh, on the 5, I apologize. Yes, Councilmember Feinberg is
On the
correct.
final one is Tuesday?
Is Tuesday.
Oh, it is, okay.
Okay. All right.
Right, thanks.
So thank you all very much for your time. Mr. Spearson, so nice to meet you.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you, John.
Thank you. Say hello to Ramona.
Enjoy the day.
Take care.
I'm going to stand up for a minute. I agree.